When I started implementing kettlebells and training this way, I'm stronger now than I've ever been because now I know how to utilize my entire ability of strength.
On this show, I sit down with Dre Mayes. You may know him as Every Goddamn Dre on Instagram. He brings innovative movements using mainly kettlebells that can be employed and used by people from all walks of life. And he has some valuable insight into common sense, applicable training.
Results are important, 100%, but I need you to fall in love with it first.
Kettlebells will expose weak links in a hurry.
Life happens in motion. You're pushing, you're pulling, you're turning, you're squatting, you're lunging, and you're doing all this while trying to be in control. There's no bad exercise. You may be bad for the exercise because you're limited. You don't have the range of motion. You don't have the strength. It's you. It's not the exercise.
If you have one kettlebell in your house, you could just keep somebody in good shape for the rest of your life.
Because it would no longer be about the weight and all of this. It'll only be about the movement of your body. The instrument doesn't change the rules of hypertrophy.
Say that one more time. Say it for people in the back. Say it.
If all I had was logs and branches, I could get some muscle.
I am Judd Lionheart, former Army Ranger, college linebacker. I've been a strength and performance coach for over 15 years. Let's get into it.
People probably know you as Every Goddamn Dre on Instagram. Got a huge following. And they probably know you as a kettlebell guy. But if you look at your page, you do a lot more than just kettlebell work.
Yeah. Right.
And I've been a huge fan of yours for a long time, man. I'm so excited to have you on the show, first of all. But the more I started to research you, you really start to understand that you have a lot more to offer. You have a lot of insight, I think, because you're a little bit low key, as they'll find out. Like you're not super boisterous. A lot of your insight into training knowledge and exercise knowledge, I think, kind of goes under the radar a little bit. But I want this to be more of a tactical podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know a lot about your backstory, but you just have so much tactical knowledge to offer people that I really want to offer them some value in that realm today.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we get to talk about your experience as a trainer, because you're a trainer as well, right?
Yeah.
Your experience with kettlebells, some of their benefits, and then some of your own personal workout routines and philosophies along the way.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
all right,
Let's
get into it, man. So real quick, a little bit about your background. You're from the East Coast.
Yep.
You just kind of tell people like
born and raised in Virginia, Chesapeake, Virginia.
Okay.
Grew up down there. Played football majority of my life.
What position?
Running back.
Running back. Oh,
Yeah.
I could have guessed that.
I mean, so many. Short, stocky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Running back. Yeah. Played running back. I had left South and went north when I went to play college football, and I played up in Massachusetts, and that's kind of how it got me on the Northeast. Yeah.
Cool. Have you always been into working out, and then kind of what made you become a trainer after college?
I was always into, I won't say I was always in working out, because when I was in high school, I hated it. Like, I was one of those gifted athletes. Like, I didn't need to work out. Like, I was just pretty good at the sport. But once I got into college, I realized, like, everybody was just good. So, like, I started to use the workout as, like, to get the edge. Like, I wanted to make sure I was stronger than guys, make sure I was faster than other guys. And, like, I figured out I could do that in the gym. So I just became obsessed with the gym.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then what made you become a trainer after college? What was that
Because I kind of got like dragged into it, because it's like I tried, like, for a while I was like once I transitioned out of college, I was a behavioral therapist for a while. So I worked with children. Yeah, like that taught me insane patience.
Yes. I bet you used a lot of that with training, right?
Oh, big time. But I was really intense about like training myself, and people would ask, like, could you help me do stuff? And like I would help them to my knowledge. And it was like, well, maybe I should learn more so I could be able to really help these people and not just do what I do with myself with them.
So it's almost not something you pursued. It's something you felt there was a need for, and that you could help people out.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Listen to some of your other podcasts. You're very inflective as far as you see that when you first started, you needed to improve, and you made a conscious effort to improve. I think that's something a lot of people lack. Can you go into that a little bit more about?
Oh, for sure. Because I mean, I feel like I had the tangibles of like the ideal, like this guy knows how to train himself. Like it was very evident, like, and I understood, like, but I didn't know the knowledge behind it.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I can
you were
do
an
this.
instinctive
Yeah,
trainer.
like I was like,
Yeah.
I work out, I train hard. Like I got all the tangibles, I got the look, but I don't have the knowledge. Like if someone was to come up to me who didn't look like me or who didn't have my ability, I couldn't do anything for them. So I flipped the script. Like I was like becoming obsessed with becoming that person that could help anyone train.
Yeah, that's fantastic,
Yeah.
man. I feel like a lot of kids these days, I don't know what it is about our youth now, they just really feel like they know everything.
Yeah.
And they're like 21, 22. And I remember when I was 21, 22, I was like, I didn't know it. I kind of
Know.
maybe thought I knew a lot more than I did, but I was more apt to like look to the older trainers and like do my research. And before I spoke with confidence to older people training, or like look at something and ask why rather than say that's wrong. Do you find that to be true these days? That people?
Oh, big time, big time. Everybody wants to know, like, and I would say when I was in that peak of being like that youth, like I thought I knew everything about training. I was like, everybody should train this way, do this because like it works for me. And you don't realize until it's like so close minded. Like there's so much more that you could be opening doors and offering to people if you just like get rid of the notion that you know everything and start to understand you don't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah, just looking back, man, like if I could go back and talk to like my early 20 Judd and just some of the things I would say, I would just like laugh and like, just like, you'll figure it out. And I feel like it's really hard to find somebody that's really good at kettlebell work that isn't more open-minded and can't see some of the subtleties. And some of the things that struck me about your previous podcast was how you used this practical application and there was a practical meaning that wasn't, you understood the science, but then like where the rubber meets the road outside of the lab, it's just not practical.
Yes, for sure. And that's what you realize, like the science is it was created based on someone's limitations on what they could do. You have to understand, like, not everybody falls into that category. Like a lot of people have abilities or expose themselves to learn and try and attempt more things by just being more open-minded and exploring movement.
Yeah,
and that's what I like.
That's a great way to put it.
And that's why I like with myself and with my clients, because when I was challenged with clients, like I worked at Equinox for a while, so we would work, I feel like the age range around like 40 to 60. So all the people, like ankles are bad, knees are bad, they can't do a full squat, they can't. So you almost have to be creative to get this person to be able to do what we know as just normal movement.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're kind of just like corrective exercise. It's like there's no real strength training behind it.
Yeah.
But you have to find a way to get these people stronger, find a way to get these people to be able to progress. So you almost have to be open-minded to things that's not in your training book.
Man, that's such great advice. I hope people pay attention to that because, like, people love the back squat. And
Yeah.
I love back squats too. I can't really do them. I use a safety bar now, but, they're like, you have to back squat. It's the best exercise. And I'm like, well, what if people don't have the the They're like, you have to develop mobility. I'm like, okay. How much time do you have to spend with these people?
What do we do in the meantime? Like,
Yeah.
in the meantime, what do we do?
Just work mobility once a week for 8 years until they finally have enough mobility to do an arbitrary exercise that you happen to love. Like, it's very dogmatic.
Yes.
And the thing I love about your workouts is they combine a lot of different elements to where you understand that by combining those elements, there's no one that can be optimized. You're not going to optimize strength or optimize muscle size or optimize core work, but they're all good stimulus for all of those. And then the time efficiency that you develop by doing that. And then was something that like I immediately recognized. I'm like, he's getting a lot of benefits in a lot of different areas by combining things to good effect.
For sure. And over time, you do get the strength, you do get the muscle development because you're doing something over a span. It's like I'm training full body muscle strength all the time, every day.
Yeah.
I'm challenging my body to think about constantly what I'm doing here and there. It's not just like the isolated movement. And those are great. Like those work perfectly.
Especially if you have time.
And I say this to people for a thing. It's like training for something and then actually doing it. It's like if you're like football players, the way they train in a sense, and then it's game time. Like you don't know how many times your body have to twist and turn in a different way.
Absolutely.
But you got to be able to perform. It's like, all right, so how do you actually perform throughout your training if you're always isolated?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like once your body what happens when you tell your body to do two things and you only know how to isolate?
You can't expect to be prepared for something you haven't trained for,
exactly.
At least similar to that, right? If people haven't gone to your page, the innovation in your movement, but it's not just clickbait stuff.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing and you see it, it's like, man, that is really good, different, innovative stuff. And there's a misconception, and I don't want to jump ahead here, that you can't get stronger with kettlebells because I don't think people understand how heavy the kettlebells are that you're moving around. Because if you never pick one up, the minute you pick one up and hold one, you can feel things working and feel a challenge unlike you've never felt.
For sure. And it's a different type of strength. I tell people it's like, I call it like pure strength. It's like you can understand your center of gravity, understand how to focus and hold something and twist and turn and press and squat, do all of this while being in control.
Yeah.
That's pure strength. That's like functional, physical, like you have the ability to do these things.
Kettlebells will expose weak links in a hurry, right?
And that's why people have the fear notion of them, that they don't do all these things, because they never approach it with that mindset. It's like it's too much to figure out and be able to get the benefits from it.
Exactly, man. I
Yeah.
love it. I tend to divide my own exercises arbitrarily, of course, into performance based and quality of life / robustness based.
Mhm.
And you can get very good performance benefits from kettlebells, but I think their greatest value, if I just wanted to increase the force that my muscles could put out, and you do a lot of barbell stuff too,
Mhm.
with impressive weights.
Mhm.
So that right there goes to show you the performance transfer between
Oh,
kettlebells and
big time.
barbells. If I just wanted to improve the force output of my leg muscles, there are probably better options than a kettlebell,
Mhm.
right? Like machines for one.
Mhm.
But like we said, that performance is limited by whatever the weakest link in that chain is.
For sure.
And, just for general health and longevity and just feeling good and strong every day of your life, can you think of anything that are better than kettlebells for that?
No, I don't. And I always tell people, in a sense, I'm like, when they argue like deadlifts, squat, they're like, all right, you have the idea of the stationary strength. You're great at that. But life happens in motion.
Yeah.
So you can't just deadlift 500 pounds in one spot. Like that's great for that. But like
Yeah.
life is constantly, you're pushing, you're pulling, you're turning, you're squatting, you're lunging, and you're doing all this while trying to be in control.
That's a great way to put it right there. So I actually have questions I wanted to ask. I always do
Alright,
this. I go down
yeah.
tangents, but let's start with you as a trainer, because you're a very accomplished trainer before you were an influencer,
Mhm.
and you still are. So, what are some common, areas that you feel like young trainers make mistakes? What are some common missteps that they make as young trainers that you would, advise them against, or if you had advice for them?
I guess kind of what we talked about before, just one, thinking you know everything from the start. Being very dogmatic about certain styles of training and not being open minded to different styles of training, and really limiting themselves in who they can train and how they can train these people.
What about the relationships with clients and athletes that they train? Is there any advice on interpersonal interactions, like how to foster a
It's
relationship?
for sure. Like, and I say this because I got some people that have been training for like 10, 11 years. It's like there's a line that you have to cross, because it's, you want this person to feel comfortable, to feel close, to almost be family with you, because
Yeah.
but that means you really have to pay attention. You have to know things. Like I know what time my client's son has a soccer game. I know when they play what. Like I know the personal stuff about stuff that you won't normally ask people. Like I ask these questions because I actually do care, but it builds that relationships
Yes.
where you have this client and they trust you, because they trust you with information about their family and inside the gym as
Yeah.
well.
And also what's going on in their personal life
Yeah.
affects their ability to train and their training goals, right?
Yep.
So it makes you a better at your job as training
100%.
them,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then they trust you more with it.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
So, I think that goes into a little bit what is optimal, quote unquote. It depends on, I always say optimal is contextual,
Mhm.
right? So what is optimal as far as an exercise goes or a stimulus may not be optimal for that person at
For
that
sure.
time.
At that time. And I always, the optimal thing that kills me, I always say, when it comes to like anything's optimal. And I always say there's no bad exercise. You may be bad for the exercise
I love
because
that.
you're limited and you don't have the range of motion, you don't have the strength. It's you. It's not the exercise. Like there's some stuff that are like, all right, that's insanely dangerous, but there's people that have the ability to do it, so it's not bad.
Yeah.
And if you do it and you can progress it, it's what's wrong with it?
I always see people, that they'll squat on a stability ball,
Yeah.
and people are like, that's stupid. Well, I'm like, well, that'd be stupid for you, but they have this unique skill, and I'm looking at it like I would never have anybody do that.
Yeah.
But if they can do it, more power to them.
And that's all it is. It's like you don't have to do it. You maybe can't do it.
Yeah.
It's just not for you.
Yeah. Or you'll do something and that's a blown out back waiting to happen.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, not for me. It's not,
It's not.
because I'm still waiting.
Exactly.
I feel like, and people in general, but I feel like trainers, agree with me or disagree, we tend some trainers tend to project their preferences and limitations or lack thereof onto their clients?
Completely. And there's some things I will do with myself that I haven't attempted with clients, just based on like, not that I don't think they can do it. It's like the teaching of it. I was like, I don't waste too much time teaching you this technique when we have an hour together. Like, we have a goal we're trying to reach. I can't spend 30 minutes trying to teach you something.
I mean, that's a great point to bring up.
Uh,
You know, at most, you probably have 3 hours a week with these people.
Yeah.
So what are you going to put in those 3 hours, and what are you going to focus on? Do you have any advice, just generally speaking, how trainers should go about prioritizing the limited time they have with their clients?
Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, when I first started working in the gyms, I was always curious about, you would always see the trainers that were on the mat, like stretching and warming up 15 minutes, 30 minutes, they'll do the workout, then they'll warm up.
Freaking
I'm like,
kills
you
me.
just wasted. Like, I'm paying an hour and 50 for this session, and we spent 15 minutes on the mat, just like stretching. It's
Oh, it
like,
kills me, man.
gotta
Not
get the
wasted,
most.
but definitely not a good use of time.
But that's where the loaded mobility and stuff comes in, that you don't have to waste time not actually training when you can get these people into movements that they can be getting better.
So that brings up a great point. So things that check more than one box.
100%. And that's my entire philosophy on training, because I've always only had an hour with people. So I'm like, I don't want to say I need to tackle 1,000 different things, but we need to get a lot done. And on average, you may see people maybe 2 to 3 times a week. And you have to assume as a coach, they're not doing anything else on their own. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
they're probably not going to the gym at all. So
That's very true.
we're only going to get better at what I'm doing with them. So I really have to take advantage of that. And then you have to factor in the likeness of it. Like, some people, they don't like the deadlift. They don't like the squat. They
Great
don't
point.
they don't like doing certain exercises. And when they tell you that, sometimes you can kind of trick them into, but again, they're paying you. So you have to remember, like, you kind of got to do what they want in a sense, but you got to also do what they need.
That's a great point, man.
So that's why exercise variety is key, because I've been training somebody 10 years. There's some people that in my beginning stage, I would do the same workout with them every week for weeks on end. And while I know that's great for them, they're bored out of their mind. You have to remember, these people don't like exercise like we like exercise.
Man, these are great points, dude.
So we can train and do the same thing every single week, have no issue with it, because we understand the goal. This person hates working out. So you have to keep them interested. You have to get their goals. But most important, you got to make sure they're enjoying it just a little bit.
Great advice, man.
Yeah.
So get the most from the least amount of time.
Yeah.
Make sure that what you're doing, it kind of meets in the middle. So it's got to be effective, but it has to be enjoyable for them, or something that's not awkward or painful or makes them uncomfortable. So sometimes it's good to just ask the client, do you like this? What's your favorite type of this?
They'll tell you. They'll tell you big time. Because how many times have you heard that? This again?
Yeah.
Like, we're doing this again.
Listen. That means they don't want to do it.
So you just, it's so simple. And that's why I like kettlebells. It's so simple. As maybe we were doing a suitcase lunge that week. Now we're racking it. We got another one. It's not the same exercise. It's the same exercise to us, because we understand. To them, that's new. That's different.
Man, these are great points, man.
It's
I'm glad.
different.
Like, you know, it's funny, and it goes back to the importance of bonding with your client, because I feel like if they don't have that bond, that they won't be comfortable saying they don't like something, and then what they'll do, they'll just stop showing up.
That's what it is.
And you can't make a difference if they don't show up, right?
And you always should be, and I'll tell people, you should be paying attention enough to know when someone stopped and why they stopped.
That's a great point too.
Yeah.
To be able to know, to look inside yourself, like, this person isn't showing up, and and I've seen trainers do this, they just attribute that to a lack of their motivation or dedication.
No.
It's like, well, they're not enjoying it. You haven't either sold how important it was or made it something that they look forward to to get them to keep coming back to you, right?
And I've felt this before with people when I felt them pulling away, but I knew why, because there's some people that, there's bad trainers as there is bad clients. Like, some people pull so much out of you. You feel yourself having to pull back. And when you pull back, that's it. Like, that's when they start to pull back, because like, you're no longer giving as much as you can, because it's like, it's draining you. It's taking too much out of you. So I've had some clients where I'm like, it's a lot. Like, it's way more than what is being paid for.
Yeah, I have a long history as a trainer too. Do you have this happen to you where people start using you as their therapist?
Yeah.
Or start calling you off hours with their problems?
Texting, all that. Like,
it's like, man.
But, and like, some of it is like, I'm glad you trust me with this, and you take my advice, like, but it's like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And you have clients that give you energy. You have clients that take you energy.
That's
and
so
constantly
true, man.
It's like push and pull all day long, personalities. And that's why I look at my fiance, I'm talking to her, I was like, when she gets home from work, she like want to talk. I was like, I done talked to 12 people today. Some of them
So
drain me.
true.
Some of them, I'm like, I'm all social.
That's
out.
so true.
Like,
I
out.
can't talk anymore.
That's
Like
it.
I will get in, when I used to train 8, 9 in a row, I'd get in my truck and like no music, no sound,
Nothing.
windows up, just quiet, you know.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's true. It is funny how some people give you energy and some people take energy. And it's
And you
sometimes it's
notice
hard to
it.
put your finger on what it is that causes that. You know what I mean?
And you remember those sessions where you like, this person, it's going to take a lot out of me to get this person to get through this session.
Yeah,
And you got to prepare yourselves for those sessions.
that's true.
But then like after months and months of that, you like reevaluate, like, all right, there's the good and bad relationships. And there's clients that I had to fire. I'm sure some had to fire me because I'm more of a, like, we're getting this done today. Like like we have a goal, we're working towards it. And early on, like I think probably in the middle stages of it is I didn't give my clients a lot of praise because you know what happens when you give people too much praise. They're like, oh, we're good, we're done, we don't need to do anymore. And then they lose all the track. So like when my clients, when I say I'm proud of them, if they doing good, they're like, oh my God, you say that to me now? I was like, it's just because I don't say it, I'm always proud of you. But
It's
I want
supply
you
and
to
demand,
keep
dude.
going. I want you to keep going.
Supply and demand. Too many compliments devalues their
Completely.
lowers their value. Right?
Completely. Like when you've done something, like really, you're gonna know that I'm gonna let you know.
Yeah.
But if it's like, now this is what I expect of you, so I'm not gonna keep shaking your hand and like patting you on the back. This is the normal now. Like I expect this from you. Showing up, that's the least you could do.
Those are great points, man. You know, if there's 3 things that you had to look for in a trainer, if you boil down to 3 characteristics of somebody that you think would make a good trainer, like what would those be?
Oh, I feel like you asked me that question, that it would have changed from when I was a trainer to now. Because now I think it has nothing to do with training.
That's
It's more about
great
more
start.
so I would say just being open minded, hard worker, pay attention to details, I guess.
Those are 3 really good ones, man.
Because it's just more so about learning and being able to be teachable to be the kind of trainer that you may need to be for that business or that client.
It's true.
Yeah.
I always tell I can teach somebody the science. Science is easy. At least enough science to understand.
Exactly.
You know.
And how as important is it if I can't get you to show up and do the work?
Yeah.
The science doesn't matter.
It's
like, so I've worked with people that were very like big on the science, and they loved to like wow their clients with it. And I learned like that's the worst thing you could do, because I was like, this person has 3 kids, he has a full-time job. You're trying to give him enough knowledge to be a trainer. He doesn't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
That irks me, man, when they use
It
big
drives me
words.
nuts. It's like,
They learn like all the like the dorsiflexion, supination,
yes, bro,
and they think
like,
they're fucking smart. And like, hey, they don't care, man.
they don't care.
Like, would you rather them see progress? And like every once in a while, you use a big word so they know you know what you're talking about. But if you know, if you can say toe up or foot up instead of dorsiflex, they don't care.
And that's why I think I'm so different, because I learned how to weight train and build muscle and do all that stuff without knowing all those language and all that stuff.
And you don't need to know it.
You don't need to know it. You don't. You don't. But later on, I learned it.
Yeah. Just
to feel like, all right.
Yeah.
Thought I was missing something.
It's good to know the why behind what works, right?
But I wasn't missing anything. Not knowing it. I wasn't.
I know trainers, and they don't know the science, and they really at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they're extremely good at getting results from people, because they just kind of have a feel for what's right and wrong. And it might not be optimal all the time, but they get buy-in from people. They get people to trust them, and they get people to work hard and show up. Yeah. And like those 4 things, if you got those and you're not getting them hurt or something, like, you know, you look at them like, well, that's not ideal. You know, it's not an ideal exercise, or too many reps, or too light a load.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, man, they start looking good. They start jumping higher. And it's like,
well, it's the conversation, the engineer, the mechanic. Who you want to fix your car?
That's right. That's right, man. The mechanic knows my car.
Regardless, he might can't spell the words, but I promise you he can fix it.
Man, that's a good analogy. Right? I never heard of that. I like that analogy. Yeah. All right, let's shift gears to away from training, because only a certain amount of people watch this are actual trainers. But the people that are watching this that are thinking about getting a trainer, you know, maybe we just help them know what to look for when they're selecting their trainer. And I would say this, like, as trainers, like, don't get your feelings hurt if they pick another trainer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, don't let your pride get in the way, because at the end of the day, it's about their success and not your pride. And the same thing, you know, too, like, you know, don't feel bad if a trainer's like, hey, you know, I gotta let you go as a client because I'm getting too busy, or it's just not right fit.
For sure.
Like, at the end of the day, it's for both parties' success, right?
Especially as a trainer, it's like I used to always project onto. I was like, oh, I think I would be better for this person, or how this person get this client. Like, some people just work better with other people, It might not even be great for actual goals, but this person may listen better than you.
They'll show up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as just people and their workouts, I want to kind of get into kettlebells last, maybe. But what are some basic guidelines and advice you have for people when they're first starting to get serious about working out? Like what are the nuts? What are the most important things?
Obviously the showing up and
Yeah.
doing something you like. Like, I mean, I don't care for other styles of training for myself as much when you talk about like CrossFit or like people like yoga and Pilates. Like, what's the main, like, I don't, like, I've done all these things, but I enjoy like strength training the most.
Yeah.
But if some people are into that and that can keep them showing up, I'm all for it.
That's great. Very similar philosophies there.
I'm all for it. Like,
Like-
whatever can continue to get you to show up
Yeah.
and produce movement and be physically active, I'm all for it. As long as you're not hurting yourself,
Yeah.
I'm all game.
I have a fitness pyramid, right? That
Yeah.
I've gone by years. And it's like, the higher up the pyramid you go, the less important it gets.
Mhm.
So the base is always safety. Like you can't do something that's going to get you hurt, right?
Yeah.
And then right above that is consistency.
Mhm.
And then mine is kind of comprehensive approach. Like you can bias certain things like strength training or cardio, but people like body parts, like they only do their arms or upper
Mhm.
body. I think that's very important. That there's a little, at least a bit of cardio and mobility.
Oh, for sure.
And then after that, it's intensity. And then after that, it's like specialized techniques like drop sets and
Yeah,
all those
yeah.
stuff and like, variable resistance and all that. And then after that, it's like exogenous things like hormones and supplements.
Yep.
But it's funny is people always get that pyramid flipped upside down with
Always.
the frequency that they ask me. The first thing they ask me about is like, what do you take?
Mhm.
And then it's like, you're doing that cool thing. What does that do?
Mhm.
And then it's like, man, how do I, or they start trying to lift really heavy weights.
Mhm.
It's like, man, don't worry about that. Just show up, be consistent,
Yeah.
be more well-rounded, do something that won't hurt you.
100%.
They never ask about that stuff though.
And that's why with my programming, my approach is results are important. Don't get me wrong, 100%. But I need you to fall in love with it first.
Man, that's great advice right there.
So I create programs that keeps people showing up. They enjoy it. You get stronger. You improve mobility. You become overall better physically.
Yeah.
So now when you want to really tap into the specialized stuff, you want to be like really pursuing strength goals, you are consistent enough where you can get into a program that you can really drill it.
Because you already have that consistency.
You already have
down.
that consistency. Instead of doing it the reverse, some trainers, they just give you that type of program right away. You do 2 weeks and you never look at it again. It might be the best program ever.
Not
But you're
best for
not
you, though.
consistent enough to be able to get the results from it.
Man, that might be the best advice anybody can give somebody just starting out. Like, do what you love as a trainer.
Yeah.
Like, what's best for you and for what the science says isn't best for them if they're not going to do it.
And that's why I tell people, why you train the way you do? Because it keeps me showing up.
Yeah.
If I had to go back to training like bodybuilding style training, I won't train as much and I won't be as consistent and I'll have way more plateaus and I'll get bored with stuff constantly.
Yeah.
So I train the way I do because no matter what, I know I'm going to go in the gym and explore movement and I'm going to keep building strength and keep improving mobility, improving stability, and I'm going to keep doing it all the time. And it may not be as taxing as the other style of training it was.
Yeah, that's a good lesson learned for the barbell purists. Like, you only need the basic barbell movements. And they might not be wrong there as far as like most of your gains can be gotten and most of your from basic barbell movements. I think that they're missing a lot as far as like core strength and athleticism.
For sure.
But sure, let's assume you're right there. Just because that's all you need, and that might work well for you to keep you going. Not everybody wants to go in and back squat and deadlift and bench press every single day.
And
know
not
what I mean?
just that, not everybody can do it effectively.
No, or safely. Or,
I wish there were studies to show, like amongst trainers, I know there's a higher percentage, but when you get in like gym pop, the amount of people that can squat and deadlift properly or split squat or row with a barbell, that percentage is very, very low. So if you start asking these people to do these things, they don't do them properly, they don't see the results, of course, they're going to stop doing it.
Man, that's the truth right there. Like, it irks me when I see dads their coaches put these like 8, 9-year-olds under a barbell, do a back squat. It's like that, but back squat's an advanced exercise.
It is.
You know what? Bench press, because I work with a lot of very elite powerlifters. Most people can bench press, right? They can lower the bar and push it up. But when you get into the details of what makes a safe and really effective bench press, like the bench press is a very technical exercise.
Yeah, it is.
Like the powerlifting movements, the deadlift, the squat, the bench press, they seem very simple when you just look at them. But like when you break down what all goes into those, the mobility you need and the skill, to like lift them really heavy safely. They're very technical exercises.
Oh, big time.
Because the barbell, it's not a natural implement, like something straight
no.
that you could put a bunch of weight on.
No. And that's why what happens with it when you use it too much and you overuse it and with too much weight, you get injured. It's like, no shit.
You get really strong at some things, and the little chains that maybe a kettlebell, a little bit of kettlebell training once in a while.
Just adding a little bit of it because it'll give you that extra stability, that extra mobility. And that's what this is how I preached it to people for a while. If you want to do more of the barbell stuff long term, add in this stuff.
Yes.
It's just going to give you more ability and it's going to allow you to do this stuff longer.
Exactly.
Because if you only do that stuff, I promise you, you're going to hit setbacks. So many setbacks along the way.
Couldn't agree more, man. Let's get into kettlebells specifically. So I think there's a misconception because when people see dudes working out with kettlebells, you're one of the kind of the exceptions, actually. Most dudes are kind of muscular, but they seem just kind of more fit. And a lot of dudes, they want to be like bigger, like, you know. So there's a little bit of a misconception that kettlebells don't build strength. Like, what would you have to say to people?
The problem, the instrument doesn't change the rules of hypertrophy.
Say that one more time. Say it for people in the back. Say it.
The instrument does not change the rules of hypertrophy. If all I had was logs and branches, I could get some muscle.
But the muscle doesn't know what it's doing.
It doesn't, because I know how to train in a way where whatever I have, I can train to a certain failure, and I can build that muscle. So that's the misconception. And people think you need a lot of load for that. That's also not true.
Why is that not true? I agree with you. Why is that not true?
Because if muscle fatigue is muscle fatigue, it's not exercise fatigue. So if say you wanted to build muscles just doing back squats, you can, okay. But if I wanted to do lunges, split squats, and all this, I can get that same muscle fatigue from there because it's a volume gain.
Because when we're talking about just muscle hypertrophy, which has to be separated from strength a little bit, and kettlebells are good for strength too.
Yeah.
But muscle hypertrophy, that works, and this is scientifically proven, anywhere from the 5 to the 30 rep
Completely.
range. Like very high reps build big muscles.
For sure. And that's why people say, should I do low weight, a lot of reps? Yes, if you got low weight, you're gonna have to do a lot of reps because it's gonna take a lot of reps to get you to failure. If you do a little more weight, it may take less reps.
That's why it's funny to me when women, they don't want to like add muscle.
Yeah.
Right. Well, at the base of adding muscles, you have to be hypercaloric, first of all. Secondly, so they do high reps. I'm like, well, if you want to get really strong and have good looking muscles without a lot of hypertrophy, it's probably better you go really heavy and really low rep. You know, so you're right there. Your 12 to 20 rep range is right there in that really big muscle. Like that's what bodybuilders
That's what they do. That's what they do. But it's just a lack of understanding. It's just so when people say that, I was like, and I don't like to say it because it may come off as wrong. I was like, maybe those people, like I still have that itch. Like I still wanted to be like really strong at a bench press and a squat. So even when I use kettlebells, I train in a hypertrophy way that continues to allow me to build muscle. A lot of people that train with kettlebells, they are more swings and more snatches, more power,
dynamic,
and a lot of that. Look at some of these CrossFitters, the snatches. They're massive. They got all this muscle. Why? Because they're forcing their body to do full body exercise constantly, and repetition.
There's a systemic effect to
completely.
That too. Yeah.
So they don't understand it.
Also, another thing, the muscle doesn't know how much weight's in your hand
at all.
It only knows, even if you're trying to build strength, which requires a high percentage of your 1 rep max, right? The muscle only knows the amount of tension being applied to it. So if I take a very light kettlebell, light as opposed to like a barbell, which like, let's say 70 pounds, and I lift that out to my side a little bit, my delts, because the lever's longer, are getting a lot of tension.
Oh, for sure.
The same amount of tension as if I was pressing a barbell over my head. Now there's good and bad things to both. Like the kettlebell is going to build more like, you know, contralateral core strength and stability, and work some of those little muscles that we talk about. And a barbell is more of a systemic load to your, you know, so there's good and bad to both.
100%.
But, you know, if you look at people that train with heavy kettlebells, those dudes get insanely strong.
Extremely strong. And it's like shock. But the thing is, and I'll say this because it's the mobility of it. Say, like, I love pressing with kettlebells over barbell because I know for a fact I'm always getting the range that I need.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not shortchanging. And it feels better. It feels more natural. It's just like a better movement.
People say they hate kettlebells, but really they hate them because of the way they do them. Because they try to lift a kettlebell like it's a dumbbell or a barbell. They're all like out to the side. You know,
It's a technique thing. They lack the ability to use them properly, so they can't really see the benefits of them. They feel like they're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of learning curve, but it's
Okay.
simple stuff. Just turn your wrists over, like simple things and that. But it requires you to dial the weight back.
Yeah.
It
people don't
requires
wanna
you
do
to
that.
drop your ego and realize, like a lot of people when they first start out, it's like I had to use like a 12 kg, and it humbled me to realize like I can get a workout from just this one small instrument.
It's
But a
true.
lot of people don't want to take steps back. It was like I'll lose strength. When I started implementing kettlebells and training this way, I'm stronger now than I've ever been with only training barbells and machines, because now I know how to utilize my entire ability of strength.
Yeah.
Like my body know how to produce force with all of my muscles working.
That's a great point. It teaches you that the importance of that chain.
Completely.
Yeah.
How to use muscles simultaneously,
Yeah.
not always isolating.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. It kind of irks me a little bit when I see trainers that use kettlebells that don't know how to use them.
Mhm.
Because I love kettlebells so much, and like a kettlebell clean.
Mhm.
You don't clean a kettlebell like you clean a barbell.
No,
It's
you
a
don't.
different movement,
It's a
right? It's
different
curvilinear,
Yeah.
and they'll have the kettlebell like flopping on their wrist, and I'm like, you're taking, so that person will always hate kettlebells now.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
Well, because the wrist is like all the stuff they say they deal with, like, oh, it's the wrist. I deal with the wrist pain from it. Like, it's the elbows. It's like, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, they're actually extremely joint friendly.
Yeah.
Kettlebells.
Oh,
are,
big
you know.
time. You
Yeah.
just gotta learn how to use them.
Sticking with kettlebells, man. What are like three, if you had to boil down to your three favorite things about kettlebells, like what would that be?
More than I mean, I don't know. I think they all all falls on the one. It gives me variety. I feel like I have endless movement with kettlebells.
Nice.
I'm always able to explore what my body's capable of.
It's they give you the ability to explore new movements.
Endlessly.
Yeah.
Like endlessly for anything. And I love that it exposes weaknesses.
Yeah. That's two right there.
Anywhere in your body, anywhere. And in order to get, and it's one of those things where you can barbell, leg press, you can push through limitations just by loading it and push through load. Kettlebells won't allow you to do that.
Yeah. That's two good ones right there.
If you don't get better, your stability doesn't get better, your mobility doesn't get better in certain exercises, you will not progress in those exercises.
That's great. So everything's kind of got to build together.
It has to.
Which
you
in
have
the end
to build a
result is
great
much
foundation.
safer. Yeah.
Well, you get longevity from it.
Yeah. So endless variation. They expose weakness. I find that first of all, let me digress a little bit. You know how the dumbbell came to be?
Yeah.
You know the history of the dumbbell?
No, tell me.
All right. So it sounds like a weird name, right? The dumbbell. You know where that name came from?
What?
So bellboys, they used to ring bells to wake the town up and know when it's time to go to prayer and everything like that. But ringing bells was exhausting, and they had to ring them in rhythm, right? So just like anything else, you have to train for that. But they couldn't be training all day ringing the bell because it annoyed people. So it literally dumb means quiet. So they'd take the bell down and put this dumbbell up there that looked like the dumbbells kind of that we use now, only like look like old school dumbbells.
Yeah.
And so it's called a dumbbell because it was a quiet. And since they were heavy, people realized they could lift those
for weight training.
And we inherited the shape of the dumbbell from something that was never meant for exercise.
Something that was dumb.
Something that was dumb. So, and I love dumbbells.
Yeah.
But the kettlebell was built for physical training.
Yes.
It was built with a handle and round in a way that would flow with the body. So a kettlebell was designed. I would say one of the benefits of kettlebells is it just works with the body because it was designed to be used with our body.
That's true.
And like it's with one kettlebell,
you can get a lot done, man.
If you have one kettlebell in your house,
a lot done.
You could just keep somebody in good shape for the rest of their life if they just have one kettlebell in the house.
Because it would no longer be about the weight and all of this. It'll only be about the movement of your body. And if you always focus on that, you always be getting better.
Yeah, if people go to your page, man, and they see the stuff you do, and you look at it, you're like, this dude is going to be in shape until he's 100 years old.
Because you don't need the gym.
Don't need the gym.
And
I love the gym.
And COVID taught everyone about that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have access to a treadmill. You don't have legs to a leg press. A lot of people's strength training went down because they needed all this stuff.
They lacked adaptability.
100%.
And then I've had other people say, hey, during COVID, I had the best workouts of my life because it made me get out of the gym and try new things. Yeah. Sticking with kettlebells. Do you have three top exercises for beginners for kettlebells?
that are like basic. I think I would do the basics. So just like your squats, your strict press, I like the half kneeling windmill,
Yeah.
all things like the loaded marching. I think that's for us, but yeah, I do
Yeah,
it.
loading marching. Yeah, that's awesome. So if there's 3 mistakes people make when they start with kettlebells, I don't know why I'm sticking with 3 today. Just a
Yeah,
good
it's a
number.
good number. Yeah.
What are some common mistakes that people make with kettlebells?
Well, not understanding like how, like a lot of times people don't realize like all the weight is in the bottom of the bell.
Yeah.
So when you hold it, you have to understand like how to brace and like how to core tension. Like you have to understand like what's happening when you're holding it certain ways. So I would say one of the biggest mistakes people the way they hold it.
Yeah. They started to try to move the kettlebell before they learned how to properly hold
For
the
sure.
kettlebell.
Yeah. Another mistake.
What are some basic tips you have for people when they go to hold a kettlebell? Just in like a rack, let's say a rack position.
In pretty much all movies, you want to always feel like you're on top of the bell, not the bell on top of you.
I like it. Yep.
Because
That's a great way to
that
look
changes the dynamic of how it's gonna work. Because you in anything, you don't want the weight on top of you. You can't really do much.
Can you explain that a little bit more deeply? I know what you're saying.
Talk about the rack position. Although you're holding this, your wrist you want it turned over like you're on top of the bell.
Yeah.
Now you can control the weight. Yeah. When something's on top of you, you can't control this much.
Yeah.
So same as when you're holding it in the goblet position, your hands are here.
Yeah.
You're on top of the weight.
Yeah.
Always make sure you're on top of it.
That's a great way to put it. It's a simple way that people can visualize.
Oh, big time. Because when they hold it, they'll think about it now. Like it's maybe too high. It's too high. I'll bring it down a little bit. Make sure I'm on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, they can feel it.
Yeah.
I know people starting to try to like put the kettlebell up on their shoulder.
Yeah, they like relaxing.
I mean?
Yeah, because they want to use it as like it's like a barbell or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as far as let me see. Checking through my list here. I normally don't use a list, but I'm trying to use a list today. Let's get into you specifically. Let's wrap with your training.
Okay.
What you do to see results and like how you like to break up your training.
And I think it's very similar to what you described as with your pyramid. It's like I go through phases where I'm really focused on building strength. I'm really focused on. I'm always trying to improve muscle and mobility. That's like the key in my training. But a lot of things where a lot of times I like to work on things in the gym that I don't feel like get a lot of work outside of the gym, as far as like lateral movement, like the backwards lunges, like a lot of different stuff that you don't really see in your day-to-day that you should be getting better at, but you got to really train it, like the rotational stuff, like a lot of that stuff. I really want
you don't know you lack that ability until
it happens. It happens
until you need that ability.
Exactly. So I try to work on that stuff as well. Right now, I'm like big into running. Yeah. So I do a lot of running. I like being better. Like I like just the holistic approach, being physically able of doing everything.
What kind of running are you doing right now?
Long distance.
Long distance.
I mean, I grew up a sprinter, so I've always been able to sprint. But
it's good to get outside your comfort zone.
Long distance challenges me.
Yeah.
Like it really challenges me deeper than anything. So I'm like really into the long distance. But I'm like that with everything now. I'm like, I want to be like, I feel like being in the industry now, I have friends that are good at everything.
I know. Yeah. It's humbling.
Really
right?
mobile, really great runner, really strong at these lifts. And when I go and visit and I hang with these people, I don't like nobody showing me up. So like I need to make sure like I'm physically capable.
Whenever I meet with those dudes, I'm always like afraid they're gonna like try me to get to do their workout. Yeah. Like, oh man, it's gonna be so embarrassing.
Exactly. So,
like you mentioned you at like Phase 6 Fitness, like they did all that groundwork. Yeah. I'm like, I'm so bad at this stuff. Yeah. They make it look so easy. You know?
So simple. They they flow through it so fluently. But it's because they work at it. So I do groundwork as well. Yeah. I did jiu-jitsu for a long time as well, but I want to be good at everything. Yeah. And I don't mind, like, let's say the jack of all trades is like, yeah, okay, but to have the ability to do everything is way better than being great at one thing.
Yeah. I always say, like, if you want to become great at one thing, you have to be okay being very poor at something
and a lot of other things. And I'm not okay with that. I'd rather be average and good at a lot of different things than just being great at one thing and bad at 10 things.
Yeah.
I'd much rather be the other way around.
Yeah. Like, it's just, that's why it's so hard for me to ever pursue one thing to the point of greatness. Cause it's like, I start to work and I get good at it, but then I start to see other things. I'm like, I don't want to lose that.
Yeah, I don't lose it. You want to be able to make sure. And there's ways that in itself is greatness. Being able to maintain and sustain your cardiovascular health, your strength, your mobility, your stability. Like most people they only do one. They do the strength. They ignore the mobility, they ignore the stability until it becomes a problem.
Then they don't do strength comprehensively. So they get really strong, chest muscles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I always overall approach with everything.
Comprehensive approach. So that seems like a lot to people.
Yeah.
Like people only have like 5-6 hours a week.
For sure.
Like what's your advice? It's like, okay, that's great, but I don't have that much time to do a comprehensive approach when in fact they do.
You do. It's your training has to make sense. That's why the full body training is everything.
Yeah.
If you find a way to put together a program or whatever you train with someone, a program that's put together that allows you to work on all these things. Like you don't have to have a full day of mobility and you can't work strength. All this stuff is created together. So there's exercises and there's movements you can do that allow you to get better at both things at once.
Yeah. I was listening to one podcast you had, because we both love to do like B-stands or kickstand.
Yeah.
And your answer to that was, well, it helps with stability.
Yeah.
And I don't have to take time out of the workout to train this person's stability.
Exactly. It's like I'm killing 3 or 4 birds with one stone. Like stability, I'm getting range of motion, and I'm building strength.
Yeah.
And if we're doing rep range,
the optimal way to train stability, and it might not be the optimal way to get really strong, but they're both really good at both.
Really good at both. Yeah. So it's the better option. So what's the flip side of it? I could spend 15 minutes doing stability work, and I could spend another 5 doing strength training work, and I won't get better at the stability just by doing a warm-up routine. And the 5 minutes I had here was not enough time for strength.
Yeah.
So it's like,
so maybe sometimes the way to look at the optimal way to do something is doing it in a way that can allow you to do it with enough volume in a limited amount of time.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
And that's always the case, because as us, like I have days I spend 90 minutes in the gym, but I'm always thinking about gym pop. Like my approach is simply most spend an hour, most spend 30 to 45 minutes tops.
Mm-hmm.
So workouts have to make sense for them to get better physically, lower, upper, core. So that's why when you design your workouts, it has to make sense for that.
Yeah.
And that's why they get on people that's like, why do you say like sit-ups and crunches are bad? It's like, they're not bad. It's just
it's not time efficient.
It's not a time efficient. So, and I had this study. I was like, you can do 1,000 sit-ups and I can have you do 1,000 squats. The amount of calories you'll burn from 1,000 squats versus 1,000 sit-ups is like night and day difference.
Yeah.
Like it'll take 2 million sit-ups to burn like 1,000 calories.
Do you want a stronger core, or do you not like your belly fat? Like, let's get at the core root of it.
Exactly.
No pun intended.
And I could just let you know, change in the kitchen. That's it. And we can do our regular workout. You don't need to worry about doing sit-ups.
Yeah.
It's
said principle, like specific adaptations to impose demands.
Exactly.
Right? So that brings up a good point. Like a lot of people say, well, I just don't have time to do my cardio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, it's because you're bench pressing and then you have 3 minutes where you're just sitting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's hard. I don't understand why people don't understand that.
It's just the way they feel like they should train. But there's a lot of wasted time in that, but they feel like they have to put that amount of time in and be able to progress in that bench press. It's like, all right, you're not going to PR today.
Yeah.
Like, get it out of your mind.
Are you trying to be the world's best bench presser?
So pick a weight. That's your rep range. If you can go a little bit heavier, fine. Yeah. But also play with the rest time. Like, understand, like, you don't need to be 5 minutes. Like, it's not powerlifting competition.
I mean, this is a few years ago. This dude I'm on a boat with this dude, this group of people, and the dude is talking about like he's trying to get to a 400-pound bench press.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good goal.
Yeah.
And then he hopped off the boat, and he like it didn't blow his knee out, but he hurt his knee pretty bad. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, like you had a goal that clearly isn't supporting your lifestyle needs.
Yeah.
Because like, if you bench press? Let's say you're bench pressing 380 today. Does that help you jump down off a boat?
No.
You know?
No.
Like,
and if you can't jump down on a boat, I think you need to flip your interest to be squatting.
Like if you find yourself onto your back a lot and you can't get people off you, you need to start up your bench press.
For sure. It's finding out what makes more sense. And people don't realize until they get older. Like there's a few people I know that work out at the gym, they only train upper body. They got big upper bodies, got lower. And they're just like, I can't squat anymore. I just haven't been able to do it for a while. I got back. I was like, but
part of that is because they think they need to back squat.
But I was like, you don't. And also it was like, it doesn't have to be that way.
No. Yeah.
You don't need to back squat. But if you not wanting to and not doing it is one thing, not having the ability is another thing.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, you don't want to not have the ability. I don't back squat as much, but I can.
Yeah.
I don't deadlift. I can.
Yeah.
I don't run 1,000 miles, but if I worked at it, I can do it. It's the difference in being not I don't want to ever not have the ability when it comes to mobility or anything. It's
Yeah.
like your body should be able to have the ability to do these things. So you train in a way that allow you to do it.
You know, it's funny, like at my age, I don't love conventional deadlifts anymore,
Mhm.
but I'll still do them once a month. And it's the other things I do will keep me, I deadlift over 600 pounds and I never train it. I train
Yeah.
it once a month.
Yeah.
But the other stuff I do,
It allows you to 100%. And I say this to people all the time. I think deadlift is probably one of the more pointless exercises when you talk about hypertrophy. Like,
oh yeah, it's not good at all for us.
It's not good at all. Like you're more liable to run into an issue elsewhere than you are to build muscle and constantly deadlifting. It's like it's not necessary.
Yeah, if your goal is to build muscle, I maybe would do some RDLs.
Yeah.
But yeah, deadlifting is not your best use of time. Yeah, agreed. Especially, man, it's not just the risk, because if you do them right, they're not that dangerous. If you do them right, we know that. But most people don't do them right. And then the amount of time it takes to like get up to your working weight, it's like 45 minutes, man.
But it's also the tension. I was like my biggest issue with a lot of those stationary exercises, you're constantly having to build up tension, which is great for that movement, but in actuality, it's not that great for your body. Constantly develop that much tension for one movement, one heavy rep, one heavy weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that great for your body.
You don't need a big dose of very heavy strength training to stay very strong.
You do not. You do not.
I think people struggle with the belief that they can't be comprehensively fit because they don't understand the value of dosing.
Mm-hmm.
They think they need way too much dose of something.
Yeah.
So they spend a big dose with hypertrophy. Hypertrophy needs a bigger dose than strength training.
Most of the time,
yes. But hypertrophy also takes less out of you, and it can be combined with other forms of training, right? So can strength training, but a very small dose of strength training goes a long way.
Long way. I tell people, I was like, you know why when y'all see me lift heavy, it's so impressive, it's so fluent? Because I did it once in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
If I lift heavy every week, it wouldn't look like that all the time.
Yeah, exactly, right?
My body would be all banged up.
Yeah.
So.
And like elite powerlifters, they need to do it more often because that's their sport.
That's their sport.
And those dudes, a lot of those dudes are in pain a lot of time.
Exactly. I was like, and that also comes to a stop at some point.
I see a lot of like we talked about Mark.
Yeah.
He's on a different path
completely
now.
Flipped the script. He takes the holistic approach of understanding like he needs to explore more and do better things for his body, and his body thanks him for it. He's very capable of doing a lot now.
It's Mark Bell. Like if you don't know him, like look him up. You should know the dude was an insanely gifted power lifter, strongman, strength athlete.
Yeah.
And now he's shredded, does long distance running. Like he changed his body
completely.
Dorian Yates is another dude, like bodybuilder. Now he's like does yoga, very healthy into his older life.
It does nothing but allow. There's life after that. And I had this conversation with someone. They were talking about some of the big time bodybuilders that now you see them, they can't really walk, like certain things. Like I was like, they would trade all of their fame and stuff for the ability to be able to walk and function properly at 40, at 50 years old.
That's a great way to look at it. It's
because
like
who wouldn't?
Like performance versus daily function, man. I was
always
like,
you
don't know how important it is till you can't do it.
Exactly.
And I think when we were young, we just take the daily abilities for granted.
Completely. Yeah. Like it's just a given.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to train it and get better at being stronger in these ranges of motion and these functional patterns. You don't need to do it.
And that's the thing too. It's like, and I fall prey to this too. I think we get a little selfish when we get like my age.
Mm-hmm.
We still chase those numbers and the big muscles. And then if it's debilitating us or if it's not allowing us to move well into our older age, and then people that depend on us or want to be with us, they're suffering because we're a little selfish.
Exactly. And that's why I said that about those guys. I was like, they have kids and stuff they can't bend down and do stuff with because of what they did. I was like, to me, that's selfish.
Yeah.
Because at some point along that line, you asked yourself, is this necessary? And you kept going when you knew it wasn't.
Yeah, it's so true, man. That's a good. I didn't really tend to get into that. That's a great lesson though for everybody out there.
And you can have it. You're in great shape. You're functional. You can move well. You can chase your kid. You can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Yeah. You want to, you're not good with 17-inch arms. You want 20.
You want to, like, what's the difference?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point, man. So this has to be a shorter podcast, unfortunately, just because time constraints today. I wish I could talk to you for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
I feel like we agree on a lot.
We probably would have went for like 4 hours.
Yeah. But I mean, the way you put things is so refreshing. Like you just have a way of seeing things that is just, you kind of cut to the core of what's really important, which I think is rare in this world. Like understanding the things about training and physical fitness and movements the practical applications and
Oh,
cutting to
big
what
time.
really matters, you know?
And my life approach is the same.
Yeah.
100%. It's just open-minded, understanding. There's different perspectives. There's different ways to do things. 100%.
So, to close, like if you could spend one day, you know, or let me put it this way, if there's an athlete that has made the biggest impact on you, either now or in your past, who would that be?
I'll ask you, who would you think it would be based on what you just learned from me? I know who I'm going to say, but I'll ask you.
Who do I think?
Yeah.
Oh man, is it Mark?
No,
no,
athlete,
just 'cause we
like
talk-
sports athlete, yes.
Well, mine would be Walter Payton. That's right.
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe, I love it, man. Why? That's a great answer.
The relentless approach of being better at something
Yes.
and not allowing anything to get in the way of that.
You know, a lot of people say Kobe.
Mm.
It's a shame he died, man. Like
Yeah.
that dude.
Oh, that broke me. Like, I think that was probably the last time I cried. I don't cry much, but that was the last time I cried.
He's the closest dude to Michael Jordan, and not just performance on the court. That's a side effect. Like the way that dude approached life from a very young age.
And he shared it with us. We didn't get a lot of the talk from Michael Jordan. Like, he wasn't big on like the Kobe he shared his mindset with people, which was huge.
That's why people loved him, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought he was crazy sometimes, but like
there's always a little bit. You can't have a great with no crazy.
You can't.
That dude was incredibly intelligent too, man.
Yeah.
Like I think he spoke Italian, a couple other languages too.
Because I told you, relentless approach and wanting to be better at something he felt he needed to be better at. Whatever it was, he just attacked it.
Yeah, I think the Lakers, part of the reason they were so good was because they just saw Kobe at practice. And
how do you be around that and not soak it up? Like I was watching from afar and it
just lifted everybody else up around them, you know?
Yeah.
Man, that is true, man. So, you know, to wrap things up, how can people find you? What are you into right now? What's next for you?
I got, depending on when this comes out, I got some stuff coming, but you can find me on my Instagram, every goddamn Dre, my YouTube's.
That'll be in the show notes. If you want to go to his page, we'll list his in the show notes.
YouTube, my website, Kettlebell Functional Training, like everywhere. But I got some stuff coming.
All right. Like what kind of stuff you can't tell?
Can't really say because I don't know when this is coming out, but you may know once it comes out.
What about long term, man? Like the next 5-10 years? Like you know, what's your 5-year plan? You got one?
Yeah, I mean, more so like I've got engaged recently, so I'm planning to be fatherhood at some point, and I think that relentless approach we're talking about is going to be into being the best parent I can be.
You know what I'm excited about is there's a few other dudes out there that do this too, and you've got such a good base to be able to approach this the right way. Is staying fit as a dad
and
when
sharing
you're exhausted,
it, and sharing
and you have limited time, and you have such a good foundation and mindset to be able to take that and apply it to fatherhood. I can't wait to have you back on in like a year when you have a 1-year-old. You know, you're a little tired from the marriage and stuff, and you can share with us
what that's like.
How you stayed in shape at that point.
So that's I think if you say 5 years, that's like, because I have business goals and stuff like that, but I've accomplished a lot at a short amount of time. So I kind of like try to stop putting pressure on myself for that, and like starting to embrace like what's next, like what's the biggest thing next, and it's probably being a parent. Yeah,
that's cool, man. How old are you?
32.
32 is a good age, man. Yeah, it's a good age to start, dude. Dude, like I said, man, I wish I could have talked to you a lot longer. Hopefully in a few months or in a year, we get to sit down again and delve into things a little bit more deeply. But I was just glad that I got to share you with some people that might not be familiar with what you do, because you've had such a big impact on me. I've learned a lot from you. I enjoy watching your stuff, and I can't wait to see what's next for you, brother.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.